Well, well, well. Look who's
Three
back.
wells.
Yeah, 3 wells. Look who's back.
You really rolled out the red carpet for this one.
Well, I like to make a dramatic entrance. I learned from you.
I upload nearly every day. There's nothing dramatic about my entrance.
I mean, considering the quality of your content, I'd say it's worth the wait. And by wait, I mean like less than 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no. I feel like part of the channel is it's good and it's bad in the rate in which I upload videos because it doesn't leave much to the imagination. I think it's weirder if I don't upload. You know what I mean? So yeah, I try to plan them as best I can, but you want to talk about channels that are a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. When we talked about streaming, I was like, really? You?
Really? Me?
Yeah.
Well, look at this. Here we are, back again for more, because we just can't seem to learn our lesson.
Surprised, I'll be really surprised if this video ends up getting shadow banned like the rest of your channel.
Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, the fact that the original post on the channel, which was the what was it, the Trump supporter Rex, the Joe Biden guy.
Yeah, it was a Curb Your Biden supporter.
Curb Your Biden supporter. If you look at the analytics of the video, at a certain point, it completely dies. For no reason whatsoever. On an upward trend, almost like Dogecoin. See, I'm looping everything together here. Almost like Dogecoin. It goes, and then it just crashed. And I have a feeling that, for all intents and purposes, the YouTube content cops finally caught on to it. Granted, a little too late, considering that the channel reached the 1K threshold. So
yeah, I was gonna say you
wrecked.
made your money.
I made $4. Yeah, thanks.
Well, that's just it though. You made your threshold, and that's really all that matters. I think it seems very. It's sort of a jaded topic when you talk about YouTube monetization because there's so many people getting screwed over. But once you reach that payment threshold, as long as you don't dip below 1,000, I think that's how it works. I'm not sure, but I think that's just sort of the thing why people want to keep their channels growing.
Right.
It's because they worry. But when you have 1 million subscribers and plus, I don't think you have to worry too much.
No, and when you do, it's interesting that they do upload on such a frequent schedule with that in mind. Probably because the benefits of doing so are far better than anything else.
Right. Right.
But in some cases, like Internet Historian, there's maybe one every year barely. So
yeah, I mean those
dynamic.
videos are borderline. You could aside from the I guess composition of the videos, he's got a great voice for narrating. His filmmaking skills are exquisite. Filmmaking skills. I mean, he doesn't even show his face. Right. I would say his editing, is more of an exquisite skill.
Well, I wouldn't discount Mr. Narrator over here, considering your channel is basically narration based. And seeing the success of it, I have to say, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think it's, part of me wonders if it was I think in the beginning, part of me wonders if it was solely the topics I was narrating about and not so much the personality behind it. Because I started to notice an uptick when it came to narrating specific topics, such as like lost media,
Right.
and like theme parks. That was sort of the trend that I picked up on, and I would see that it was it wouldn't pick up when I had other topics to narrate about, and I sort of I saw and compared the analytics, and I think a lot of people, and maybe I'm just overthinking this, but I think a lot of people would think that I did the content that was more popular over and over because it was more popular, but in actuality, that wasn't the case. It was because I actually enjoyed reading about things like Disney, for example. Like that's, I think, one of the more popular subjects. And dude, there's
for people who aren't aware, it's like creepypastas and stuff like that, right?
Right, exactly. But I think what really kind of drew me into it was the whole like rabbit hole element, where it's like there are more stories than I initially thought there were. You know. So I was like, yeah, no, this is fun, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying them. So
no, that's
why not?
Fantastic, and
yeah.
I like that there's an audience for stuff like that still. And realistically, what you're doing is you're documenting all of these things, which may otherwise be like lost into the void of the internet.
Yeah.
so you're archiving with the narrations. You're creating an archive of these things.
Well, I definitely like to think so, and thank you. You know, there's a few big time narrators who have said the same thing, have made the same observations. They do this so that they can preserve it, because who the hell knows when these stories are going to be either shadow banned, copyright struck, or I guess in the same regard, DMCA'd.
Right.
Because we've seen a lot of that, but...
So that's what you've been up to. You've been pumping out content on the channel, which is the YouTube channel is Seabass, for people interested.
That's me.
And there's also your music, which is a separate channel. It's actually playing in the background as we speak. Music by Shubsy.
Hey, I was gonna say, let's not just give me all the credit here. I mean, after all, you made this edit.
I did. It was very fun because I enjoyed listening to the music in the first place.
Well, it was surprising that you managed to actually slow and reverb it and sort of make a lo-fi rendition. Oh, lo-fi, is that the...
I guess you can call it that. It's like a... I call it like study music, basically. You can call it lo-fi. I'm actually probably going to post that on the page just for anyone who wants to listen to it.
Yeah, that'd be...
Like, even as we're talking, I can hear it playing in the background, and I'm actually enjoying listening to it as we speak. It's a relaxing tone. But all the notes are all yours. There's obviously the fast-paced versions as well, and they're great as they are.
Well, if we're gonna give credit to where credit's due, I mean, when it comes to music, I experiment with GarageBand. Now, you can point the finger at me all you want, and it's probably warranted, because GarageBand is not the most technically superior digital audio workspace, DAW, rather. So, yeah, I can understand sort of someone's inclination to be like, well, really? You know, you could be using something like Logic or FL, but... I don't know, man. Those are too complicated for their own good, at least to me.
I've never been a fan of complicated programs, because in this day and age, things should be relatively easy to use. Like, all my edits are on Premiere, and every tool on Premiere is easy to use. But then there's stuff like Avid Media Composer, which I originally used. That's like my original learned program, and that thing was horrid. I was not a fan of it whatsoever. And granted, my film class kind of forced us to use it, but every time I used it, it just reminded me how much I missed using Premiere. Because I had dabbled in Premiere when I was younger, and I remember that being easy. And the same with these music programs. If GarageBand is easy, it's comfortable, and you're able to accomplish more with it, why not?
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly the same attitude I had when it came to Photoshop. Back when I used Photoshop, I thought it was the worst thing ever because I didn't understand how to use it.
I still think it's the worst thing ever because I still don't fully understand how to use it. But that's because it's not my department, that's yours.
Right. Well, it was one of those things where I picked up on it in high school, and I use Photoshop the same way that I used it back then, where it was for all my children's books, all my illustrations, all my cover photos, and still to this day, all of my album photos. I say cover photos because it's technically dated because that's when I used to publish books. But
well, you've been hustling for probably what, a decade now?
Oh man, God, since I was like what, 15? That's when I started.
Almost a decade. Give it a couple more years.
Yeah, I mean, you look back on those times and you think to yourself, man, that was fun, and you kind of don't want the hype,
right,
of it to stop. But I mean, it does, and I think as you grow older and as you mature, you start to realize the business element of it, and simply put, there is no more money in publishing books anymore.
What do you think that stems from?
Well, it stems from an oversaturated market and the fact that, if you want to point fingers here, and personally I don't, but you look at Amazon KDP, for example, Kindle Direct Publishing, and you realize how easy it is to publish a book. You realize how easy it is to go through these first, second, and third party sources in order to publish a book. And really, let's delve into that. When I say publish a book, at least when it comes to like standalone distribution publishing, we're not talking about self-publishing here, where you write a book, you print it, and then you sell it yourself. No, that's too much time and effort for what it's worth. You essentially make two files. You make the manuscript file. This could be a Word document or a PDF, and then you make the cover photo. You send those two files together. That's basically it. Now, you give this tool to anyone with a computer and a little bit of know-how of how to put together composition, a word composition. You have more books on Amazon than you know what to do with. So, when COVID was kind of in its full swing and I decided once and for all that it was time to retire the whole literary element of Sebastian Shug publishing, for lack of a better term, yeah, I think YouTube was the saving grace in that regard, both financially as well as an artist standpoint, because had it not been for the collapse of that, I probably would have never invested that much time into something like YouTube,
Well, you were already doing narration.
I was already doing narration. Well, for the books, yeah, but I come to find out that in a cruel twist of fate, but also in just sort of a stark realization, there are certain things that people want to listen to. And while I never considered myself the type to pander to other people's interests, I slowly got that out of my head when I realized that these things that people want to watch that are, getting views and getting the reception, I started to like it too. I started to like the whole lost media element of something like Disney, which caused me to read more Disney stories, for example.
And of course, they're fictional stories, but they're
fictional stories, and they can also be published in a way where I can make a video, for instance, my own. Yeah, good luck trying to publish an IP such as Disney's in your own book and try to sell it. You'd get DMCA'd up the ass.
Right.
But with YouTube, it's a lot more abstract, because I think when you have a narration channel and you narrate stories and you sort of build a little bit of seniority, you start to talk one-on-one with authors, and you start to develop a relationship with them where they send you the material, you narrate the material, and you kind of just go from there. And more often than not, it's sort of the consensual, hey, yeah, feel free to read my story kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a lot.
I get where you're coming from,
easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier than thinking you have the rights to something and then putting it in a book and then trying to sell it.
So you're on the full steam ahead YouTube train then. Have you considered, because you've got quite a few, I guess what I would call worth listening about life experiences. Have you ever considered putting those into some sort of short story narrational form? Like
the narrations I've already done, or a book
but something that you think YouTube audiences would be interested in hearing. Because if they're interested in hearing that content, I'm almost curious if they'd be interested in hearing more personal stuff.
I mean, I've definitely passed it along, the idea, through, I guess you could say, my audience in live streams, where the last live stream I did, I was reading shit posts, just funny things on the internet. And I think you were in that live stream where, people suggested stuff and I would read it, and they loved it. And I think one of the comments sort of sparked this whole discussion that, we're having, which is, hey, Seb, you published books, you wrote your own books back in the day. Have you ever considered narrating your own books? And that stemmed from a discussion of, hey, do you write all of your creepypastas that you narrate? And of course I don't. I've written a few of them, but that, you're exactly right. That sort of kickstarted in my brain, I have a lot of content that I'm sitting on that was previously published, and I can very well narrate it. The problem is, I wrote it when I was 18. Nobody likes what they wrote when they were 18.
Well, I mean, things can always be shifted around or whatever, but...
Oh, yeah, I mean, if I would narrate it, I would probably do it in a way that is symbolic of the production value that I have now.
Right.
So...
I think people are going to be looking forward to whatever it is you have to put out, whatever topic, because the quality of the content speaks for itself. And
I hope so, man.
Well,
thank you.
It's the fact that there's a daily upload more than once even is, a good sign of what I would call forward growth. And investment, just the same way you're investing in crypto and other stuff. And I think that has a great potential of moving forward, of increasing. You can look at the subscriber numbers; they have been increasing. So I think you're on the right path.
Well, again, thank you. I'd like to definitely hope so. It's one of those things where I think when it comes down to having something to do, and we're coming out of this pandemic, so I don't want to make the excuse of we've been in our house for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. It's time to find something to do. I'm glad we both found something to do along with like our niches when it came to producing content on YouTube. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful that we picked up on a whole bunch of hobbies that I don't think we otherwise would have if there hadn't been a pandemic. But when it comes down to the hobbies that turn into passive income-ish, for me, that's always been about putting that money away. I would have never used it anyway. It feels weird to use money like this, Like, I've never been that type of person to collect a check and then immediately just blow it on
I see.
The type of stuff. Like, you're exactly right. I would probably put it into something like an investment.
But your channel itself is an investment.
Right. It's sort of a pseudo passive investment or passive income investment. But when I use the word
investment, I'm not referring to like financially per se. I'm referring more to like as a concept and as something being executed over time.
Well, I was going to say it is an investment of my time more than it is my money. I think the money that I make from the channel, I don't know if I'm beating myself up over this when I say this, but the money that I make on my channel, while it isn't substantial, it is going into something that is long-term,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not just gonna blow it on, like I said, just miscellaneous crap.
And that's the whole investment thing, which, by the way, I haven't really done much of. Mm-hmm. To an extent I have, but a lot of that has been used for example, college payments and stuff like that. So right. It's not where it would have been without that, but and with upcoming work, I would probably be putting it away more than using it. But in terms of putting it into actual product or stock or whatever you'd like to call it, I didn't really consider that before. Not including Dogecoin, which was, to be honest with you, I just put in $250 almost as like a laugh.
Right.
And granted, at its peak, I had about $3,000 from it. I haven't sold.
Yeah.
I don't regret not selling either, because I'd rather it just stay there for now. And we'll see where that goes. That's been a wild ride.
It's the attitude that I wish a lot more people had. And while I don't necessarily like to put myself or you up on a pedestal for thinking this way, I can't help but say it is the right way to do it. Now, granted, big asterisk, big disclaimer, of course this is not financial advice. You know, I feel like it's just sort of blanket immunity when I say that.
Conversation.
Well, it's also just conversation, so who the hell cares?
Let me put it to you. Let me put it to the record in the most appropriate way. It's all subjective.
There you go.
Cough subscribe.
Well, I was gonna say, really, it really is, because you look at something like this and you think, not only is it all subjective in terms of price, it's all speculative too.
Sure.
You know, I'm not one to don the whole FUD and say, oh, it's going to go to zero. Like, no. There's obviously a substantial use case and market cap when it comes to that. So I don't think it's a not worthwhile investment.
Right.
However, it's one of those things that, like I said before, I think you and I have the right attitude looking at it as a 20, 30, maybe even 40-year-long investment, because it's one of those things that... It's one of those things, given our attitudes, that neither of us are going to bet the farm on.
Right.
And a lot of people do that.
I can't imagine myself putting thousands and thousands of dollars into a single stock like when they did with GameStop. And granted, in that one instance, they got lucky and it worked. But imagine putting $10,000-$15,000 on a hope or on a whim, and what if it sinks?
On a short squeeze, basically.
Like, what are you gonna do if it sinks? Do you have a backup plan? And some people took loans out to invest those loans. Like, that is terrifying.
It boggles my mind, and I look at someone like Deep Fucking Value on Reddit. You've heard his story, right?
Story?
Yeah, so basically Deep Fucking Value bought thousands of shares of GameStop back when it was, in the single digit. Mm-hmm. And people were like, well, that's the dumbest idea ever. It just keeps going down, yada, yada, yada. But he was more of a competent, I would say, investor than a lot of the other day traders, because I'll get into that in a minute. And I don't know all the full details, but basically, he bought his shares. I'm sorry, he bought his options calls, I believe they're called. And it was like an expiry date in 2021, like early 2021. When the short squeeze happened, I think his initial like $3,000 investment in total turned into $4 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, granted, he could have took that money, put it in a Vanguard S&P 500 fund, and easily sit on $200,000 a year in dividends. Okay, that is crazy. But he didn't do it. He doubled down. He refused to sell. The short squeeze got even tighter. Now, I don't know the actual numbers now, but at least when Big Boss released his part 2 on YouTube of the GameStop fiasco, he was sitting on $50 million of capital.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah. Has he sold?
$50 million.
Not once.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to picture that, to be honest with you.
It's one of those things that I wish that I learned how to do, like options trade, because had I would have gotten that money, or had I would have gotten that much money, I would not have I probably would have sold for the sole purpose of putting it into something a lot more conservative. You know, a lot of people, they make the substantial amount of money, like Anal Farmer, for example.
That's a fantastic name.
It really, yeah. So, he loaded on like Apple and SPY puts, and he made, I want to say, over $700,000 within a week. And YOLOs this money and loses it all. like it's almost insane how just asinine these day traders are.
But you know what's strange to me is that people can work their entire lives and never accumulate close to that much. And someone can get lucky and put it into a stock and come out a millionaire within a week.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. Sorry, I'm having a snack. I know it's like 1 a.m, but...
Wow, look at you having a snack in the middle of a...
Yeah. Unprofessional, yeah. As I take a sip of water, like literally everyone...
Yeah, you're fired, man.
Oh,
Get out
really?
of here.
Last time I checked, you were using copyrighted music. So, how about that?
Well, damn. You can have the $2 that this may or may not even get.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure you're gonna get a copyright claim. I never understood that. Like, there's copyright claims, and there's copyright strikes. And I remember getting the email. I'll never forget it. I get the email in my inbox saying, "Oh, your video, losing money any percent speed run." It was like this. It was like my first attempt at a dubstep track that I uploaded to my channel first before going through the record label. And the record label saw that when they uploaded the video to my Shugsy Topic YouTube channel, because all these artists, they get one. And they're like, "Oh, it's the same material." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. You want to know why? Because it's mine."
Oh, jeez.
And you know, that video didn't exist before I uploaded it to my Seabass channel. The music, in the way that it was composed. I say composed, but it's electronic music. Let's be serious.
I'm partially curious if this remixing I did is gonna get in trouble. I don't really care either way, but it's something that's going to be more interesting than anything else.
I feel as though lo-fi, that is a genre that is so tearing of a music community because they don't know how to classify it. They don't know how to classify it either as as like blatant copyright infringement or it's okay, it's a derivative work.
Well, if you make your own, you're in the safe zone. And
you're in the
frankly, what you made,
because,
if you originally made them as lo-fi, they would probably be what I would call like in that good tier of acceptable lo-fi music.
Well, the reason why I was going to say you're safe is because you have express verbal and I guess written consent, because I've sent you messages about this that you can use. You can use my music all you want, but it's one of those things where when it comes to lo-fi, there is a certain BPM that you have to look out for, and obviously you can't just take any song and lo-fi it. You know, you can't take any song and like slow and reverb it and hope to make it sound good. And I feel, and personal opinion, I feel as though the songs that work well are the songs from the 80s, more specifically R&B, funk, I guess maybe soft rock.
I mean, I've heard more like modern songs being lo-fied.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard modern songs be lo-fied too. You know, you look at probably one of the most famous, Macintosh Plus, which samples Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. Which begs the question, how did they get away with it?
To be honest, I don't know.
You're looking at Sony, Warner, all these big name music labels, and you know, there was a time where it was taken off of YouTube, which I now know was for copyright concerns, but it's back up. So, you know, what's the argument there? Like, I'll never understand particular elements of copyright pertaining to works of art.
It's a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. That's the only way I can really say it. It's just it works for whoever it needs to work for. It doesn't work for whoever it doesn't need to work for, and sometimes, you know, one way or the other. I don't think copyright even has like a set concept, a set system. It's just whoever's got more power has the ability to keep or take something off YouTube.
Right.
And so I think these bigger creators, they have a way of working that, and the smaller creators don't, so they get squished.
Yeah, no, there is I think it's sort of it's a double-edged sword when it comes to publishing something through a label, because you have to admire And I know I've complained about this before, so you may think it's kind of weird that I've switched my opinion. You kind of have to admire the predatory nature of some of these record labels for looking out for you, because that's essentially what they're doing when it comes to other people infringing on the original artist's content. And I know that they're most likely going to come after you for having this music in the live stream, but
we'll find out.
I'll be curious. We'll find out. But like I said, express agreement, but that's besides the point. I get it. The automated system that either YouTube or some other label has in order to identify music being not expressively, consensually utilized per agreement by the artist is a good idea in theory. I think a lot of people are more concerned of the ad revenue that takes place, but
I think if it's not yours, you shouldn't be making anything off of it anyways.
Right, like in a perfect world, but then you look at vaporwave artists.
Right. But I don't know what contracts they have or what agreements they have or any of that stuff.
Do a fair amount of sampling anyway. I mean, you look at vaporwave artists, and I think there's one in particular. I don't think it's vaporwave per se, but it's like electronic. Let me see if I
can. And there's a significant audience for lo-fi and for that type of content.
Oh yeah,
and advertisers want to capitalize on that. So I think that they find a way to do it.
The artist in question is called Desired.
Desired?
And Desired, right. So electronic music, this, that, and the other thing. It's not the music itself that is, I think would call for concern for copyright. And I'm not saying this in order to demonize the artist, of course not, but it makes me wonder how specific artists not get away with, because again, I'm not trying to demonize, but are able to do these things. And what I mean by that is the covers for these albums are from Sailor Moon. You remember that cartoon?
Right.
Yeah, these are like Sailor Moon screenshots. So it makes me wonder whether it be audio wise or visual wise, how specific artists can utilize specific IPs without getting in trouble. I don't know. I think a lot of these little artists would kind of get the ban hammer.
Yeah, I think that too. And it's unfortunate because it's a double-edged sword. It kills people's desire to do creative projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
While at the same time protecting somebody else's creative project.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. I don't really have a stance on it anymore. I used to. But the more you think about it, it's more of a flawed but necessary thing. And I don't get pissed off when I get hit by one, which usually is more of an accidental thing, like playing an Instagram video that has that type of background music. I think that stuff like that shouldn't really count though, because you're not playing the content straight, you're playing the content reactively.
Yeah, you're playing the content in a way that transforms the material, and I think what a lot of people assume is that if you're, let's for instance say, slowing and reverbing, that is transformative. By definition, yes, but apparently it's not transformative enough.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's like, if they want to chop it up, splice it up, make something new. I mean, at that point, you might as well just make an entirely new freaking song.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Like on its own. And so that's why I think for me, when it comes to utilizing something like GarageBand, it's something that I can use the loops that they provide. I can use the interface. It's very user friendly for me. And if anyone wants to say anything like, "Hey, you used a riff or a beat or a note," it's like, yeah, I did. You know why? Because everyone has access to them. I didn't pay a penny to utilize GarageBand. It's free. It's a free application to download, and per agreement, I'm allowed to use it. So, I don't know. It's similar to the argument of, like, why would anyone copyright a piece of art that can be composed in so many different ways? It's like copyrighting a box of crayons because you happen to use the same crayons yet to draw a different picture, you know? So, like, I don't know, but you're definitely right when you say that it disincentivizes creators from
Well, it's like buying a
experimenting.
guitar, using the guitar to make music, and then the guitar maker coming after you for using their guitar to make the
Yeah.
music. I don't...
Yeah.
I mean, it's there for you to use. If they made it so that it's not to be used, what's the point of it existing?
I was gonna say, if you write, compose, and like lyricize a song, and you happen to get copyright struck, I would just say that is the worst case of luck imaginable.
Yeah.
Like, that is
like another example of that thing we just talked about, like using an editing program to make a video, and then the people who run the editing program saying, "Oh, you use this to make the video, therefore we own it."
Right.
No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so.
A, I either paid for the editing program, or B, it's an open source program, so, you know, that's already end of story.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what kind of it's nice about GarageBand, because it's so open source, and it's I mean, yeah, granted, the loops that come preset are, I mean, they're great. They sound nice, and they're very high quality. Obviously, you don't want to use the loops on their own or try to redistribute them on their own.
That's just like, that's obvious. But
yeah,
I don't
well,
think,
yeah, exactly. That's obvious.
I can't imagine somebody can get in trouble for using a GarageBand type program to make music with the loops. I just can't. I don't see it, and I don't think that that's the type of thing that would even require like worry.
No, I mean, I used to worry about it back then because it was like,
we had that conversation.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where it was just like, when it comes to producing music, for example, of course I'm not going to take something someone else made and try to pass it off as my own, just one of one. I'm gonna try to compose something with it, or like compile it with other things, and I mean, at that point, excuse me, at that point,
it is it's 1:45 by the way, AM.
Yeah.
So like, apologies for the and I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
The yawns. It's just the hour.
Yeah, no, but it's, I guess, to wrap this point up, it's one of those things where it's like, what more do I have to do to convince you that it's it's an actual composition that I put together?
And moving to a different area of
Sure.
concept topics and all that stuff, I do want to touch on two to three-ish little experiences I've had in the last couple weeks. Well, first of all, living in this wonderful, and I say that with complete sarcasm, wonderful state of California.
Yeah.
The gas prices here make me want to rip my eyes out. I just today was going around with my friends, and we were going from one city to the other, driving and all that stuff. And I'm looking at the gas stations as we go by. And I was trying to make a mental note to myself, which one was the most egregious price that I saw today. I think the most egregious, and it was started around like 425 a gallon, but the worst that I saw was like 470 or 475, and I was just repulsed.
That is egregious.
If you really think about how much money you lose paying for gas and then add a couple extra dollars, that's insane. And I think people don't like talking about it. Like, they don't want to think about it. Because people here just kind of accept that. And I don't really know why. Go to any other state. I don't think it's as bad.
Yeah. It's the tax you pay for paradise, which, as of now, if I can just look this up real quick, because you say the state of contentment when it comes to living in a state like this, and you're absolutely right. Why would someone settle for such a high price? Okay.
It already doesn't make sense to me that the gas station has 470 and there's cars there refueling for gas, and like across the street, for example, there might be another station that's like 450 instead of 470. I'm thinking to myself, why are you across the street?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. Do you not notice? Do you not care?
So the tax rate for California, well, it depends on how much you make, obviously. So I'm gonna say that I'm in the income bracket. So I make roughly, I think I pay like 4%. So $334.18 plus 4% of the amount over $21,175. Sounds about right. If you made 599,000 or more, you owe 12.3%.
599,000 a year?
Yeah.
12%. That's still
kind of a lot.
Kind of significant. But you also have to add on the fact that you're living here, which means that you have to pay for sales tax, which in our particular case, it's about 10.25%. The actual state rate is not 10.25. The state is like 9 something, and then the city itself adds an extra 1 point something percent.
Right.
As if the 9 something isn't already bad enough. So, and when you really put that into perspective, why would I want us to buy something here that's worth over $1,000? I would rather wait and go to a different state that doesn't have that the sales tax rate like that, buy that thing and come back and
exactly,
because if you're buying something that's $1,000, you're gonna pay an extra 100, in this case 125 extra dollars. I don't want to pay an extra $125. I already got the 1,000.
It's the same thing with gold, like with buying gold. Certain certain dealerships, is that the word? Or I guess services that you can buy precious metals from. Because we live in California, there is a certain threshold that you have to buy. I think it's like $1,500 worth of gold. There's a certain threshold that you have to buy that if you don't, you end up paying a tax.
Okay.
Now, if you spend about like $1,500, you don't have to pay any of the tax. But because it's California, you have to meet that threshold.
So the great state of supposedly for the what does the government here say all the time? They're for the small man, but they're squishing down someone who can't afford more than 1,500.
Where'd you hear that? I mean, I've never heard that. I've never took California for being the small man's paradise.
The people that run this state are mostly one party, and I'm not trying to be political here. It's like that's a fact. Most of this state is blue, and that party runs the platform of being for the working man. So that doesn't really work.
I don't see it.
Right. I don't see it, but that's what they run with. They're for the minority, the working man, and for the person who barely gets by day to day. But things like that, taxing someone for not having 1,500 plus to buy precious metals, seems really predatory, and I don't really understand the purpose of it.
I was gonna say the price gouging is. I mean, I thought that certain stock prices were overvalued, and for all intents and purposes, they are. But California is one of those states that I just cannot find myself living in the next 5 to 10, maybe 15 years. So it's too expensive.
It's tough because, in my case, and I believe in your case, we're born here. Right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure, because I was born here, born in Hollywood, raised here in Glendale, and this is what I've come to know as, my community, my people, my everything. So, so there's a conflict there where it's like, I really, truly just want to get out of here when I can. And another part of me is like, I almost feel like I'm abandoning these people to an extent. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like I'm ditching. That's like the vibe I feel.
It's a certain obligation to stay where you're comfortable. I understand that. But in all the years that I've traveled cross country, I've driven over state lines, I've been in sort of the boonies area and onward when it comes to more rural versus more metropolitan areas. And I mean, it's funny, I get into conversations like this with my dad all the time. Finding peace and solace in minimalism and in small town ventures it's such a redeeming quality, because you realize that a lot of people, specifically artists, get their start in small towns. And the reason why it works so well for them is because there is it's sort of like the big fish in a little pond mentality.
It's a smaller population. You have a better chance of getting your name out there because there aren't going to be as many people competing in the same field.
Well, and that's kind of what's sad, is that people believe that they can get popular in one state, ergo I can be popular in another state, i.e. Los Angeles or New York, which is not the case at all.
I can say this having good connections in LA's most, important field, which is film and TV industry. If you don't have the connection, it's going to be the biggest struggle of your life.
Yeah, you're screwed. And even then, with the level of connections that someone has, those can be taken away in an instant. You have to have major seniority, and at that point, you may as well direct your own frickin' movies.
Right. If, like, for example, the production assistant loop, you go in as a PA, good luck getting out of it.
Right.
You're going to be stuck there. That's like a known thing. You go in as a production assistant, you get their coffee or this or that, run papers here and there. They're gonna keep you like that for a long time. And I feel like the better you do that job, they're probably gonna keep you even longer. And people, or I know someone from my high school that went into one of the local studios as a tour guide for their tour, thinking that that's gonna get them in the door of the actual studio. And I'm thinking, what a strange path. Why does it have to work that way?
Yeah, it's one of those things too where they believe that seniority comes from like doing the positions that I think have no direct correlation with what they're intending. And you're exactly right with the whole tour guide thing, because I feel like a lot of people would rather think that they can be a Warner Brothers tour guide, for example, thinking that that is going to be the in the industry. Those two things have no direct correlation other than they work at the same company. If you want something like that with a promotion level of that caliber, you would want to go in as a writer, an animator, like screenwriter, storyboarder, filmmaker kind of thing. But even then, that is a much harder to attain position.
You still need connections.
Exactly, you still need connections.
You need a director or someone on that crew to specifically want you to do that task.
Exactly. If you're gunning for a position that is classified as minimum wage but happens to be in the same company that for example, like arts, media, and entertainment, I'm sorry, I don't see that direct correlation. I understand the whole image of like an intern getting coffee at like a big business firm because they want to study law or business, or they just want to be close to them. But that's my point. As a tour guide, you're not close to the actors, you're not close to the screenwriters. As an intern, you are, and while you may end up getting booted out the door, there's a good chance that you also won't, because you have those one-on-one relationships. So I think the efficacy of being an intern versus being like a sort of a grunt with the hopes of rising through the ranks, it's like there's no contest. Now, granted, I don't know what internships people are getting nowadays, but I feel like I'm the one who missed the party because I never got an internship.
I tried once for something.
Yeah, I tried too, and I never got one.
I want to say, I don't remember the studio because I honestly didn't really care. I did it out of like, to be honest, I did the interview out of boredom. But regardless, I still took it seriously. I will say that the interview was very strange. I was asked strange questions about my background.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like, I don't know, I was asked an obligatory question about like, do you know what who this building is named after, the one that we're in? And I was like, no, I don't. Who is it named? Like, why would I know that?
Right.
I'd like to know if you want to tell me, but I'm not gonna study every building in your studio for an interview.
Right.
And I'm not being pretentious, it's just that really doesn't apply to anything.
Exactly.
The skills do. But
yeah.
And like, what's this? I had this whole conversation about my background with this guy, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to say anything race related. I really don't want to talk about that, but he was asking me about I'm Armenian, and he was talking to me about people in my community and the way they act or the way they behave and their tendencies and stuff. And I really didn't know why that mattered whatsoever. I don't even really look like what you would call maybe like a typical member of the community, because I look a little more different just based on the way I am. And so it really confused me. It's not like I went in there as a stereotype or something. You know how I am. So anyway, I didn't get that internship. I believe the 2 people that did were more not minority. And again, I'm not saying that it makes a difference or that that's the reason or anything. I just thought it was strange. And I didn't really understand what the heck was even happening. Right. Okay. And to be honest, it wasn't even a job I wanted when I found out what I had to do, because I thought it was going to be a studio-based internship, and then it turns out when I talked to the people that were in, they were just copying papers in the office all day.
Yeah.
And when I told the person that told me to do that interview, he said, "That's not what they said when they told us to ask students to go do the interview." So I think they were just looking for workers.
Yeah.
You know? But I did want to say that regarding that tax conversation, clearly there's money going to the federal government and the local governments, city and state. Clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just want to understand something. You know that I took a little trip downtown recently, and downtown Los Angeles.
Oh God, yeah. No, I know exactly what you're about to say.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah. I couldn't believe this when you told me.
I don't have an easy way to say it. I don't have a light way to say it. When you go there, you legitimately think, and I'm saying this as soon as you get off the ramp of the freeway, there was so much trash under the bridge, the underpass. There was so much garbage that you could barely drive the car through it.
Uh-huh.
It was littered. It was like a landfill.
Yeah.
And it's not just the trash, it's people. It's like bodies. What may or may not be a human being there, I don't even know anymore. And somehow, in that weird hybrid of both a wasteland and an urban sprawling environment, there's life in that, and I don't really know how that works and how people don't acknowledge it. You've got the high rises and it looks nice when you're driving from out of town. You know, you see the city, you see the lights, and you think, ooh. And you go, and right down there on the street side, there's people all over the floor. There's garbage all over the place. There was a rat problem like a year ago.
Yeah.
And you go have dinner with someone at a restaurant, and you can't have that dinner without people walking up to you and asking you for whatever, food or money and I feel bad. I feel, kind of upset, not at them. I feel upset at the fact that people have let it go on that long.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand how they could have let it happen to that point, where as soon as you park, you already want to go back in the car and leave. And this is downtown Los Angeles, California.
It's the problem with Los Angeles, because it draws in so many different types of people, whether it be delusions of grandeur, thinking that they're going to be a big shot in a big city, or the freedom of it being a predominantly blue state, and similar to the argument that I make for San Francisco as to why it's gone downhill, San Francisco is the same way. And people just sort of put this veil over it because it's such a forgiving and promising and free city. You know, it's a free in its execution of individuals who live there who could pretty much do whatever the hell they want and act however the hell they want, no matter how degenerative it is. It's so... You're right. It's so disgusting. Going to Pasadena today was about on par with what you're saying.
Pasadena's like not even, it's in LA County.
Well, no, right, so, but you can tell that it's slowly migrating.
It's moving. Yeah.
It's moving. You have the same sort of riffraff that comes from inner city Los Angeles, and it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? It really doesn't. But
the human rights people will ask you, where are you going to put all these people? And I look at people who ask that and I say, what are you doing about it? Because you can get upset that the police went to the park, Echo Park, after the renovation that they did there, which was obviously taxpayer money, and they were upset that they were moving all the homeless out of the park after the renovation to make sure that it's clean, and they were upset over that. I'm thinking to myself, well, what do you want exactly? We renovated a park. You want people to go and enjoy it. You know, everyone paid for it with their taxes.
Well, how
but
about
now you're upset that they're moving the homeless people out, and where are they going to go? Well, they weren't anywhere to begin with. You didn't care.
How about you take the question and you flip it on its head? Why do people keep coming here?
I don't know. If someone told me I want to come live in LA, I would tell them that they will regret it.
It's the question that I know nobody wants to ask, let alone talk about, because asking that question is basically asking someone what their salary is in a company work environment. It's one of those things that you keep to yourself and you keep your opinions to yourself. Nobody likes the state that Los Angeles is in. And you know what? New York isn't too far behind, okay? I'm looking at literally every other 48 of the states, and I'm realizing a theme that, you know, they have their own issues, but I'm sure they keep to themselves in a capacity that isn't, oh, hey, I'm New York and Los Angeles, or I'm New York and California. Because you go to one of these two states and you realize that they have part of what makes this state so evocative is the standoffish, narcissistic personality. Everybody that comes here with the intent of making it big, so to speak, comes here with that personality. And I get it. Okay, it's a very cutthroat industry. Okay, I do.
But what I don't understand...
What I don't understand is why that's so enticing. Why everybody feels that they have to be that boss personality in a field that would otherwise not even give a shit.
Venice Beach is what it was a place where a lot of tourists used to go. I, as a resident, would have to be paid $1 million to walk in Venice Beach now, because I would not willingly go there ever, having seen the state that it's in. And it's tragic because that's part of the city, it's part of the life, it's part of the culture, it's part of the heritage, whatever you want to say. And you go there and you don't know if you're going to come back. Even the experience that I had, to an extent, I questioned, am I gonna get back? Which is terrifying if you think about it.
That is a great point that you bring up. It's part of the culture, it's part of the heritage. Why? Why would you just think that that's okay? That's like part of the heritage? Oh, what, the danger, the allure of it? Like it blows my mind that so many people just kind of accept it for what it is, and it's just like, well, no, do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at this point, I guess the the homelessness and garbage is just as big of a staple of this part of the state as the Hollywood sign or the Walk of Fame or the Santa Monica Pier. It's now like a norm. It's a natural thing.
Yeah,
and,
it's. I
you know,
think
you
people
bring
look at
someone
it-
from a different country here, like a country of poverty, and you bring them here, and you're like, this is LA. This is where, you know, they come here thinking this is where people are made. This is where stars are made. This is where
Right.
life is better. And as soon as you take them out of LAX and drive through downtown, they probably want to go home, because it's now in a state of what I would call like anarchic. It's
Yeah.
got no law beyond, like, well, I guess the most simplest of things. And yeah, I was walking through the parking lot to go to the car, and like, you know, there's a dude trying to follow you, and you don't know what their intentions are.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, man.
I
God
don't
help
want to
you.
go back there anymore. I don't.
God help. Yeah, God
I
help you. You try to defend yourself in
Well,
California.
Yeah, and well, home defense is a different thing. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that was just a visit. Imagine living there. Imagine paying overpriced rent to live in an apartment over there. Every day going downstairs, not knowing if you're going to go back up the stairs by the end of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And you're paying for that. You're paying so much money to live there that if you took that and lived in a different state, you'd be living in a multi-story house with the amount of money you're spending on rent to live in downtown Los Angeles.
Right.
And somehow the rent keeps going up. So the state of the state
Yeah.
really is high taxes, high food costs. I went to the meat market the other day for barbecue meat. And you know how much skewered beef costs?
I can imagine.
$15 a pound.
Yeah. See, I'm,
$15 a pound for skewered meat. It used to be $6.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're paying more for food, you're paying more for gas, you're paying more in taxes. You're not earning enough. You're living in some shoddy apartment in downtown Los Angeles, one of the supposedly greatest places in the state to live in, and you go downstairs and don't know if someone's gonna stab you or you're gonna get murdered and disappeared. You're gonna walk through garbage, going to your place of work and coming back, walking by shady characters left and right whose intentions you don't know. That's not
Yeah.
living. I'm sorry. I'd
No.
rather have I would rather go to a different state and be a cashier than to live that existence.
Yeah.
Because
No.
that's
It's
it's
part of it's part of California that people just they think that they can accept, because it's one of those things, ironically, that they look at it being the dark side of the American dream. Like, this is sort of where you'd end up if you didn't make it, and people think that
Right.
they can come to California and tough that out.
Uh-huh.
And it's ironic too, because I mentioned something like self-defense and like self-responsibility, and these are the same types of people that don't believe in that.
In 2020, the LA County homeless population count supposedly is 66,436. 66,436 in 2020.
Wow.
And that's just in the in the LA County.
That's just recorded.
That's not even the whole state.
Yeah.
It says the whole state as of January 2020, and this is pre-pandemic, is 161,000. So almost 60,000 of that 160,000 is just in LA alone.
Welcome to your utopia.
Yeah, well, what gets me is the pretentiousness of people living here. Like, oh,
yeah, no,
place, and we're having such a good time and partying and whatever, and the laws here are great, and the lawmakers here are great, and they care about all of us and stuff. And it's like, do you really believe that? You go downstairs and you've got all of that trash there, and all of that, like, just deteriorated existence below your apartment. And you go and you vote the same people in. And I'm not saying you vote Republican or Democrat or anything. I'm saying that you're voting the same people in, despite the fact that your living conditions continue to worsen.
I mean, if you can... my opinion is you get some brass balls and you say it like it is. California has been voting predominantly Democrat since Reagan, like after Reagan.
Right.
So I don't think it's too much of a coincidence to say that there was a dramatic shift.
I didn't want to say it myself, and I'm glad you said it, but the reason I didn't want to say it myself is because based on people who know me, would assume, oh, that's a talking point. But I feel like it's even further justified with you saying it.
Well, okay, but that's the thing about it. It is a talking point that a lot of people, like I said, would rather not get into, because the people that come to California thinking that they can do it all end up finding out that they set their expectations way too high. They end up coming to a city that is dirty beyond repair, pretentious, egotistical, nepotistic people, mind you. And they think that when it comes down to like actually protecting themselves, they think, well, the cops are going to do it. Mind you, it's the same party that wants to defund the police. So I really don't understand that. I personally, I don't see the sky-rending irony. I don't know if you do, but it's one of those things where you have 48 other states, and I'm lumping New York in there too, because it boils down to the level of people that choose to go to these particular states because they have it in their heads that they want to be something bigger than themselves. And my advice, if you really want the experience of being something bigger than yourself for the sole purpose of bragging about it, join any pyramid scheme and see how long you last being the quote-unquote boss. No, really, you want to humble yourself? Do that. Because you'll realize how cutthroat an industry like that is, where people don't care about you. And I get it, it's two different industries, but when it comes down to taking both financial and, I guess, like, social responsibility of your future, really, get a feel for how quick someone like that gets weeded out. Am I being a little bit too blunt? I mean, look, I think a lot of people would rather... I think people, regardless of politics, would come to an agreement that we would want someplace to live. We would want someplace sustainable to grow up. Given the choice, we would want the best education, maybe even the best healthcare, and given the choice, we would not want it to drain the entirety of our wallets. Okay? I don't understand the disconnect in the average Californian.
The disconnect.
I don't understand why more people don't like it. Like, I'm genuinely concerned that they have just become passive
Well, they have become passive.
Like they've become comfortable
they've become
in living
numbed to
in.
it.
Right, and it's a shame. It really is, because I look at particular people and I know that they want to get out. But I feel like the idea of getting out to somewhere maybe more Midwestern or Southern is the idea that, well, you think California is bad, you should see the backwards rural flyover state
outside
people.
of California to them is backwards rural, blah blah blah. They just say that to make themselves feel better.
Right, but then I go to someplace like Colorado and I realize, wow, I can breathe the air. Wow, everyone's neighborly.
Okay, is it backwards?
That's the thing. It isn't. They're so neighborly. You don't even need a fucking homeowners association. Like, I can't see. And it's funny too, because a lot of people would say, well, I can't do that white picket fence 50s life. Okay,
well, enjoy going downstairs and swimming in the garbage.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, a lot of people get turned off by the fact that they say I can't do the white picket fence 50s life, and I say, well, I can.
Yeah.
There's something comforting about having neighbors next to you in a house that they own, in air that they can breathe, on property that they earned, so to speak. And driving through certain states, and I definitely want to go somewhere to like Wyoming or Montana.
On a trip, you mean?
Yeah, just like on a trip, But it's one of those things where I could see myself doing that.
I can too.
Like it sounds.
It's a hard transition, but I think once I'm there, I wouldn't think of it anymore.
But let me ask you something, because I think a lot of people feel as though moving from metropolitan to rural is such a hard transition.
Well, define
rural. Okay. Not in a major city.
Okay. Residential.
Residential, but predominantly, I want to say more open-ended. Let me put it to you this way. Land ownership. Imagine the concept. Home ownership.
Well, are you going to the extent of farmland, or are you going more to the extent of...
No. Farmland, I mean, I guess that's something that you could get into if you really wanted to. But, I mean, you look at it this way. A home, couple acres of land, and... I don't know, things that you could define. Neighbors, things that you could define as, self-sustainability.
Right.
And you know what? I will leave you to ponder that thought, because as unprofessional as this sounds, I'm going to use the restroom. So if you have anything to say, say it while I'm out, and so I don't hear it until after this goes live.
I think he is gone. Yeah, okay. Well, while he's gone, I guess I'll just have to plug everything. Cause I'm not lazy. So make sure to check out the other channel, the Creepypasta Narration channel, run by Shug. It is at Seabass, or I guess there's no at, so just Seabass on YouTube. And check out the music tracks, music by Shugsy. That is also the YouTube channel name, Shugsy. I don't have much to plug myself other than this, so if you enjoy the conversations, you know what to do. The buttons are right up there, very visible on the top of the screen. This is the part where I use my wonderful skills as a theater person to fill the stream in while my co-host is gone. And what I mean by that is, quite literally, I am filibustering. the same type of filibuster that would probably be used in our wonderful House of Representatives to hold a bill for as long as possible. The average bathroom going rate of a dude is far shorter than the amount of time that we are now waiting, which makes me ponder a few things.
Like what?
How's it going?
Oh, well, it's going. What'd I miss?
Oh, nothing. Just plugging a few things. Talking about bathrooms.
Sweet.
How was your experience?
Oh, it was fulfilling. Which gets me back into the topic, actually. Good transition.
Way
Fulfillment.
to flush things back to the right spot.
Oh, man. It's, you know, it's a culture shock to be sure, but I would dare say that it's a welcome one. It really is, because you look at these type of living conditions here, and by stark contrast in other states, and you realize that a lot of people here would rather get it in their heads that living the lifestyle of keeping up with the Joneses, having these things that they can show off. And I know people say that they don't, that they would rather enjoy the finer things in life for their own self-fulfillment. Well, my question is, why would you have to? Why would you have to have the nicest car on the block? Why would you have to have the nicest house? Have the nicest looking trophy wife kind of situation? And it just boggles my mind, because to me, I've always been about saving and investing my money, you know, for longevity's sake. But a lot of people our age are making insane amounts of money, for example, right? And they find the need to utilize this newfound wealth, whether it be, you know, instances of like a silver spoon scenario, or they made it like day trading, like whatever. But the first thing that they do is
buy a car.
Utilize their wealth in order to show off. Exactly, you know, buy a car, something flashy kind of thing. And I mean, of course, I now know that it's not a matter of buying the car, because at the end of the day, money talks. The most they can do is most likely rent the car.
Unless they're dumb.
Oh, yeah, unless they're dumb and they fully finance it. And it's like, really?
Well, the way I would do things if I made a significant amount of money trading would be to store some of it for bad days, keep some of it for living expenses, and put the rest into something worth putting it into.
Right.
I'd still work, I'd still find meaning in things, but I would obviously feel more alleviated than I would otherwise. But I wouldn't go out there and immediately buy a brand, unless I made millions of dollars. Fine, I'll buy a new car. Like, it's not at that point, you know, it's not really that big of a dent. But if I made $100,000 and I bought a new car, I'd already have like half of that down the drain. And that just seems like a waste to me if I already have a working car.
Well, a car is... I'll never understand why people get such a nice car for no other reason other than to drive slightly faster than their shitbox that they drove before. At the end of the day, you're getting to point A to point B, and what you drive in shouldn't exactly correlate to who you're perceived as a person.
Well, I guess if you have nothing better to do than to just drive around town all day, not even going from point A to point B, or just you're moving the car around for some type of enjoyment,
moving sake, yeah.
Putting miles on it.
Well, yeah, but it's also the same argument that I proposed in our streetwear video all that time ago, where it's like, why would you purposefully buy something and wear it if you would hate for it to get ruined?
Mm-hmm.
That car goes off a cliff. You think I'm going to be more torn over the fact that it's it's a 2009 Nissan Versa versus a Maserati? Of course there's going to be a difference.
Well, I have to say,
the former I'm not going to care about.
Your car has a lot of charm.
Well, my car is it served me well. I'll tell you that. It's a car that does what it's supposed to do.
Which is drive.
And that was my first lesson when I got behind the wheel. Before I even put on my seatbelt, before I even drove, it was a fatherly wisdom moment of cars get from point A to point B and should be nothing more, nothing less.
I drove my father's 2003 Toyota RAV4, and that was what I drove in the end of high school and through until it stopped working, man.
Yeah, no, cars stop working, and at that point, get a new one, because if you need a new one, get a new one. But don't get a new one. I would say get a sort of not beat up, but something that you wouldn't be ashamed to damage, because
now.
Yeah.
Which for cars to me makes more sense, because you drive it after a few years, you give it back. If it's all in good condition, fine, you get a new one. Maybe pay a little bit on top of it, and you've got a new car. And to me, that works better than having to buy a car and sell it and worry about the repairs.
For me, I would just have to hate making payments on it. So buying a car off of like Craigslist, I mean, I know it's sort of a hit or miss circumstance.
Well, if you know your car, that's different. Right. If you know what to look for, you don't want to get screwed. Because if you buy something for $3,000 off of Craigslist and you take it home, and then a month later all the parts just start failing, you're gonna pay a lot more money trying to get that thing to work than you would if you just leased for a couple of months, for a couple of years. It would be just a huge hassle. Now, if you know your car, or you know someone who knows their car, and they can tell you if a purchase is worth it during like an inspection, then you're probably better off than most other people, because you'll know if you made a good purchase or not. I wouldn't. If I went online right now and looked for a used car, how would I know what's good and what's not? Something might look good on the outside, but then as soon as you drive it for a month, the transmission has a problem, or the engine has a problem, or the wheels have a problem, the brakes. And I'd be like, man, I think I just screwed myself.
Right.
But anyway, it's a lifestyle thing, and to me, I think that the most, I guess, dream-worthy lifestyle is having a good family, living in a place where they're safe, living in a place where their school system is good, decent home, decent neighbors, decent job, nothing crazy. But some people want more, and I think on that path they derail.
Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices. I get it, but you know what? If I can, because it's getting late, I get it.
Yeah.
If I can end this right now.
Well, you can't, because I have the button.
Well, no. But if I can leave anyone that happens to be listening to this now or later, if I can leave you with some free advice, I know a lot of people have to make sacrifices in order to live. Don't do that here.
In this
That's all I
state.
have to say. In this state.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to agree with that.
Don't
It's just
come
not
here.
worth it.
Yeah, don't come here thinking that.
These industries that are here are the same industries that are growing in other places
Mhm.
with better living conditions, cheaper houses, less taxes, better lifestyle, better health, cleaner air. Why screw
higher
yourself?
standard of living overall, you know?
But it is 2:37 a.m. and as I said, I believe it's time to wrap. It's been 1 hour 35 minutes. So on that note, we're back, question mark. Let us know your thoughts. He answered the question. There we go. Okay. We're back. We're worse than ever, or better depending. And if you enjoy, you know what to do. They're up there at the top of the screen. Check out the music that we'll post later on. And on that note, Sebastian, feel free to say the line. You have the honors.
Oh, okay. Tip your waitresses?
I was gonna
No,
say it's all subjective.
So you shouldn't tip your waitresses? I mean, I agree to an extent. Like, it's all subjective in the amount you pay them. Just end the episode. Good night, everybody.